All right. Howdy ho, neighbors. We are back with another episode of the IBS Freedom Podcast. And if you didn't notice, we have a special guest today. Look, all of those rubes who are listening on audio only, they don't get to see Mitch's smiling face right now. But you people who are on YouTube, you get the whole experience. Anyway, so Mitch, you and I are local yokels. I actually met Mitch in the flesh, the old-fashioned way, the way we used to meet human beings. We met at a holistic group, and honestly, we just got ratchet jawing. His whole thing is like somatic work and nervous system regulation, and obviously that got me all of Twitter, and we just ratchet jawed about gut health and nervous system regulation and the vagus nerve. And what Mitch is going to tell us more later about neuroplastic symptoms and his journey. And so I just knew that we had to have him on the podcast. So without further ado, Mitch Webb, hello, how are you?
Nikki, thanks so much for having me. Funny story about meeting in the flesh is you were on my prospect call list back in the day. And I remember driving out, I think I came to your office in Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, and never got to hear back from you, so here we are years later connecting. It's great to finally get with you.
I will admit.
Did you snub him at first? Wow.
Yeah. So what it probably ended up being, hold on. So first of all, despite being an extrovert in my personal life, I tend to be a little bit more hermity in my professional life. And what I mean is, I used to get solicitors all the time because I was on the ground floor and I was right near a UPS store. So it was like a high traffic place. And so I just got in the habit after a while of locking the office door if I was in an appointment or if I was like in between appointments or I was recording or something. So my guess is that you arrived, maybe knocked on the door, tried to come in, and then the door was locked is probably what ended up happening because, yeah, I tend to go into like do not disturb mode and hermit mode a little bit when I'm working. But yeah, that's so funny that you had me on a list and came to my office at some point way back when I was in Chapel Hill, and then we happened to meet after I moved to Holly Springs.
So funny. Yeah.
It was clearly meant to be.
Absolutely.
Despite my hermity tendencies. You tracked me down eventually, Mitch.
I did. I knew I'd get you eventually.
Yeah, destiny. But all joking aside, I kind of opened this episode by saying that I wanted to hear a bit more about your story, and Amy hasn't heard this yet. But I'm going to kick us off by saying, Mitch, would you agree that you were in a very similar place? A few years ago, were you in a pretty similar place as the people that Amy and I work with now? That is, people who have been told that they have IBS or SIBO or food sensitivities or leaky gut. And like you were kind of caught up in that same sort of world, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, optimization kind of chewed me up and spit me out. When we were kind of talking about this offline coming in, I remember it started in a healthy way. I was, in college, I was drinking beer and eating hot wings. Not that I don't do those on anymore, but that was my diet. And, I learned how I went to the local co-op and learned about the farmer's market and eating organic. And I really learned that the better I ate, the better I felt. But I really started going down the rabbit hole of how can I feel better and better and better, because I was dealing with a lot of symptoms and I thought the perfect diet was going to heal me. And we all know that there's a dark side of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of
food is
fear.
Medicine. Like
orthorexia.
Message is crazy too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and there is some scientific truth and validity to that idea, right? Like we've met so many people who are like, oh, I had XYZ symptom and then I did a Whole30 and I felt so much better. Or I went vegan and I felt so much better. Or, I cut out gluten and added salads. And there's so many flavors of that story, but it is a slippery slope.
Yeah.
To tie in my own story, and I think, Amy, you have a similar story in this regard. I remember I felt better when I cut out some foods. Like I went gluten-free, dairy-free, And at the time, I eliminated potatoes and sesame, all of which was based on a food sensitivity test. And I felt better, right? Like 5 years of low back pain, gone. Sinus, like chronic sinus infections, gone. Chronic allergies, gone. Like I felt better. But then it kind of plants that bug in your brain of, oh, if I get rid of more bad boogeyman foods, I can feel even better. And it becomes this slippery slope without maybe fully realizing it. And I eventually got to a place, I joke, I did AIP before it was called AIP. I was just hacking things out of my diet that could potentially be construed as allergenic or inflammatory. So I cut out all the grains, all the nuts and seeds, eggs, soy, corn, you name it. And I was left with like giant green Vitamix smoothies. And thank God I never discovered oxalates, right? Because then there goes the smoothies. But yeah. I whittled my diet down to next to nothing, it felt like, and got to a pretty dysfunctional place. And the real healing started when I reintroduced foods. But that slippery slope caught me too. And it sounds like it got a hold of you as well. But maybe you used the word optimization. And I know previously you brought up the word biohacking as this idea of like, would you say almost of thinking of your body as a machine that can be optimized or fixed? And like, ooh, if I just get this nut and this gear in the right place, I'll fart out rainbow ice cream and it'll all be great.
Yeah, for sure. Like I eventually got to a place where I thought I felt better not eating. So I really got into fasting, and every time I felt anxious or had a bad night of sleep, that meant I had to do a 36 to 72 hour or another 7-8 day fast. And that led to kind of like SIBO symptoms. But it ultimately, for me, it was control and doing more and feeling like my body was a broken and a project to be fixed. And what I know now is that just sends the wrong signal. It tells our nervous system there's a tiger at the door and I can't get away from it. And of course, we're going to have symptoms when our nervous system is dysregulated. And I went down all the rabbit holes. I mean, I had lots of carnivore. I did the vegan diet for 6 months and hated that. And then got into like a paleo diet. And that was probably the more balanced thing that I had done. And then from there it was keto, and then it was carnivore, and carnivore was salt only. And then, learned about AIP. I ended up doing AIP for several years before I started reintroducing things. And I would say that was super supportive. And now I have, once I started doing the nervous system healing work, I don't have any food sensitivities. I mean, I enjoy beer again. I have gluten, believe it or not. And I had to work through the fears and the symptoms that brought back whenever I brought those in, because I was so afraid that it was going to do something bad or take me back to where I was. So at one time it was supportive, and now I don't need it anymore, but it's been a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting, the word like biohacking or optimizing, because it sounds like such a positive thing. Like, oh, I just can manipulate the system and like, oh my God, I'm going to be unstoppable once I figure out this exact formula. And it's so tricky because sort of what you're saying, and I see it all the time with patients, is, and it happened with, this was me as well. I don't think people understand that when they're constantly like judging, assessing, scanning, like they're constantly scanning your body after every meal, or you're constantly scanning your body every 10 minutes or something. Like, what is my gut? What's happening with my gut after eating that apple? I added that FODMAP. What's going on with my gut? Oh my God. I think I'm like feeling bloating, or like I haven't eaten an apple in a year because I've been low FODMAP and I'm adding that in. And I think people don't understand that just the act of focus. So like you're focusing on the negative symptom, you're focusing on the threat, what the brain is signaling as a threat, how that keeps you locked in this spiral, in this cycle of like, okay, now we're not just dealing with just like the physiological symptom, we're dealing with like, well, they're all connected, but we're dealing with sort of like the brain reinforcing this cycle of you're in danger. And all the hypervigilance, all the behavior you're doing that feels so automatic, scanning, is keeping you stuck in the cycle. And I just think a lot of people are not making that connection at all. They think that by tracking their symptoms or scanning, they're like what you're saying, biohacking. They're fixing the problem. They're diagnosing the problem. Yeah, they're running all the tests in the world to diagnose what's wrong. They're really fixing this thing. And in reality, they're just like creating a deeper problem. And I think that that's the disconnect that I see with so many patients, is the thing they're using to try to solve the problem is actually reinforcing the problem.
Absolutely. I mean, to give you a couple examples, I didn't have a sleep issue until I started tracking my sleep, and I got like a 95, and I'm like, I'm going to get 100.
Yeah.
And same thing with my stomach. I never felt my stomach or was aware of it. I heard about gut health and cleaning up the diet as I was trying new diets. But I remember thinking, like, I don't understand what is even gut health until I started. I mean, I felt mine after an 8-day water fast where do you guys remember VSL number 3 back in the day?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I made coconut milk. So very fatty, a full mason jar, looks just like this that people are watching. And I fermented VSL in coconut milk and smoked a joint after 8 days of water fasting, and just understandably mowed down an entire quart of coconut milk. And it's like I started getting what I learned was SIBO symptoms after that. And I was very hyper aware because it felt like my gut had concrete in it, and I was really excited to eat after 8 days. And because of that, I couldn't eat for another 2 or 3 days, which distress, focusing, and what you said too, Amy, about focusing on symptoms. That is I have the 7 Fs that keep people stuck in dysregulation. And so we can talk about that, but focusing on symptoms is one of the huge things that I work on with clients.
Well, and it makes me think, so we had done an episode a year or two ago now, I think, with Michelle Kavanaugh. To this day, it's one of my favorite episodes, but she works for DARE, like the anxiety app, the anxiety website. And I've told both of you a little bit about this, but my 10-year-old daughter has been having some tummy aches and nausea and stuff that we're now understanding is very much linked to her emotional state and her nervous system regulation state. And so one of the things that we did was we got the paid version of the DARE anxiety app, and we've been watching the kids' DARE course that's in that app. It is fantastic. I mean, I've learned a lot, but sort of the way that she would frame it in that class is your alarm guy is what she calls it, like your nervous system, your alarm guy shows you a thing. And then it's going to decide if that thing really is scary based on your response to it, right? So like your alarm guy could present, oh my God, there's somebody at the door. Mm-hmm. But if you're like, oh, let me just go see who it is. Oh, it's my best friend. Oh, hey, yeah, come on in. Then the more that happens, the more the alarm guy gets the memo of, oh, a knock at the door is not scary. It's not bad. It's not dangerous. But if you hear a knock on the door and the alarm guy presents that as something potentially scary, and then you get scared and you're like, oh my God, like I have to, oh my God, I'm not going to answer it. I can't answer it. Oh my God, what if it's a solicitor or a boogeyman or a murderer? And oh my God. Like the more you do that, the more the alarm guy gets the memo. Oh, that thing that I presented that may or may not be scary actually is scary, and I need to protect her from it. And so you're reinforcing that loop. And like with symptoms, I was just telling a neighbor friend about this morning, recapping some old episodes with her. But we, on this podcast, we've talked about this a handful of times. Mitch, I don't remember if I ever told you. So I've had numerous people over the years email me in the middle of the night and say, oh my God, I didn't poop today. Should I go to the emergency room? And then they'll email like 3 hours later and be like, why aren't you emailing me back? It's like, yeah, because it's 5 a.m. Calm down, Brenda. But it's not Brenda. But anyway, I've had that happen multiple times, or some variation of that multiple times. Meanwhile, my best friend from high school, I kid you not, she poops 3 times a month. I think that's super problematic. I wish she cared a little bit. I wish she cared a little bit more, but you would never know. She's not freaking out about it. She's not telling anybody about it. She's not doing anything about it. Again, like I wish she cared a little bit more, but it's like you can be presented with the exact same symptom of constipation and you can choose whether you freak out and get scared or whether you do nothing or whether you notice it and take calm action. Like that is within your control. But yeah, it's this idea of neuroplasticity. Wow.
It's in your control. If you have the education, the awareness, maybe you learn that as a kid, but when you're in survival, your prefrontal cortex gets knocked off, and then you're spiraling. I mean, I had some stressful stuff happening this past week, and my gut, I was telling you guys about it before. My gut started getting all kinds of tight, and I had a client reaching out about his own symptom, and what I gave him some information and he was like, oh, why can't I remember that? It's like, dude, you're in survival. And my therapist is reminding me of that. And when I moved through what that was attached to, I start burping. What? And that's where this work, for me, treating it, trying to fix it, reinforced it, meeting the underlying emotion or sensation, learning to accept and allow the sensation in my body, it took that. But if we don't have that, and we, the guys that I work with, they've never experienced safety. I didn't experience safety until I'm 40 years old, And so if we don't have that on board, if we didn't get that wiring, it makes so much sense that any little sensation is going to set us off. And it's like, that's where education and awareness is so much of this work.
Yeah. Well, in case in point, why we're here right now talking about this stuff, right? Because this stuff can help people tremendously, but, if you're not aware or if it just hasn't really resonated with you for whatever reason. But yeah, like kind of understanding how the nervous system and these cycles of like fear, anxiety symptoms, like how that plays a role in your journey, like that can be the first step for a lot of people.
Yeah. I think too, like it's really interesting what you're saying, Mitch, about trying to like problem solve when you're activated as such. Like it's one thing I've struggled with, and we've talked about this a lot on the show, like more postpartum, like OCD, anxiety type symptoms, where like I think I've always run that way, but it was just like way worse during the hormonal shifts and things like that. So that's when I started working a lot on like anxiety, OCD stuff. But I remember one of the therapists that I worked with was like, you can't solve anything like when you're basically in a panicked, anxious state. Like there's just no, and that like really helped click for me. Because then I could be like, oh, I notice that I'm up here and like it is pointless for me to ruminate and to like do all my compulsory things that I do to try to get rid of this discomfort. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. Like if they can just realize like, oh, I can identify that I'm up here and I need to like redirect focus to what I was doing before and kind of just let this be instead of like arguing with it. We always said, on the podcast I've shared, like the way a lot of my anxiety would manifest is I'm a ruminator, a spiraler. So like we always joke that my anxiety, I call him crackhead Steve. So like it's like trying to argue with a crackhead who's just like yelling the most crazy like stories and ideas out. But like you wouldn't actually argue with a crackhead. They just don't know what they're doing and saying. Like, but it's like me, I'm trying to put together some sort of legal argument to present to this crackhead. And like when you think of it in that way, it does sound a little funny and ridiculous. And that always helps me. Like humor has always helped when like anxiety comes, is like, okay, if I can just be like, oh, this is my crackhead Steve moment. Like I need to kind of like just allow it to be here and move on. But yeah, I think it's important for people to understand that if like you are wrapped up in the anxiety and you're kind of like feeling very heightened and fearful, it's impossible to problem solve. So like you think you're fixing the problem, but a lot of times the things you're picking are from like a dysregulated state. So, you know, that's why I think we see people so often like going down the wrong path over and over and over again, because like the logic and like the ability to actually say like, oh, I've done the SIBO protocol 5 times and none of the times have worked. Like, should I do the SIBO protocol again? Like there's a thread there, but like they might keep doing the same mistakes because they're just coming at it from a very dysregulated, frantic state. But I think if you can build awareness of like, wow, I'm like awful at being able to problem solve when I am in a heightened, like panic attacky type state, that helps. And I think getting awareness around what that looks like for you, like for me, it didn't look like anxiety, panic attacks. Like I didn't realize I was having panic attacks when I was having them because it wasn't what I had seen on TV. Like a panic attack is like, oh, breathy, like I can't.
Hyperventilating.
Like hyperventilating. Mine, I could be having a panic attack and you would never know. I could be as cool as a cucumber on the outside, but I get like very depersonalization, derealization kind of symptoms, like almost out of body symptoms, like total dread, like a dread sensation. But it does not look like what I thought panic attacks looked like on TV. So I think like there's a lot of people kind of like that too, where they can't really notice when they're sort of maybe entering the state where they can't really, like the goal is maybe just to kind of allow and survive and move through. And then once you get kind of on the other side, you can sort of like realize like, oh, you can survive these feelings versus resisting, fighting, that kind of thing. But, you know, just being able to say like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to like come up with the best gut healing plan in the middle of a panic attack or like when I'm in this kind of very high anxiety state.
Well, and can I interject before we let poor Mitch, you know, the guest, speak?
Yeah, I know.
I feel like we've been going back and forth a lot. No,
this is just an exciting conversation.
It is. Well, that's why I was so psyched to have Mitch on and have this conversation. But I just want to throw out 2 additional pieces to that, and then I want Mitch to weigh in. But I would add also, I think that other heightened emotional states could get lumped in here, where like the prefrontal cortex, the smarty pants part of your brain that lives behind your forehead, right? The prefrontal cortex shuts down. And so an example, neighbor Bestie and I were talking about meltdowns with our kids. She has a 12-year-old boy. I have a 10-year-old girl. And we were talking about the similarities and differences when they have meltdowns. And for her son, when he has a meltdown, he cries and he just, and he kind of goes more like, you know, crying, sadness, distraught kind of a direction. My daughter, when she's in a meltdown, she goes full on anger, rage, you know, just like everybody in the world has wronged me and I'm pissed about it kind of mode. And we both have noticed, and we talked about this recently, when they're in that heightened state, whether it's like a heightened sadness, I'm crying and I'm distraught kind of state, a heightened anxious state, a heightened angry state, when you're dysregulated and in that heightened kind of energy neurological state, no amount of logic penetrates the skull. Yeah. I'm telling you, from 10 years of meltdown with my kid, when she's in that dysregulated state, I could be the best gentle parenting figure. I could present logic. I could be empathetic and compassionate and lovely to her. I could yell at her. It does not matter what I do. The only thing that helps is giving her some space and leaving her alone so that she can regulate, or like trying to help her regulate, and then reapproaching whatever the conversation is once she's in a more regulated state. But there's no penetrating the skull. And so I'll say that too, because I see way more anxiety, OCD, health anxiety kind of stuff with the people we work with. But I have seen people and situations where I think that the dominant trend is that they swing more towards like anger, resentment, you know, those sorts of things. And like similarly, if you're just pissed off at the world and you resent every doctor who didn't help you. You resent every Instagram influencer who sold you on a supplement. You resent your mom for making you have trauma that gave you IBS later in life. You resent the doctor who wouldn't do a SIBO test. If you're just in that state, then I don't think anything's, you're not in like a logical, good decision-making place either. But what's interesting, and then I'm going to kick it to Mitch, is I know I shared this with you, Amy, off camera, and I think I might have mentioned this to Mix. As I was kind of brushing up on some of these points for this conversation, I learned a new vocabulary word that I'm very proud of. It's called alexithymia. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. ALEXITHYMIA. And I just pulled up, just for the sake of something to read, according to Google AI, so take it with a grain of salt. The definition is alexithymia, sometimes called emotional blindness, is a personality trait characterized by impaired ability to identify, understand, and describe emotions within oneself and recognize emotional states in other people. And what's really fascinating that I'll throw in here is they say that about, and this is like a non-pathological variant of it. Like, we're not talking about people with like borderline personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder. We're talking about like normal people. They don't have, or like sociopathy. We're talking about a non-pathological, non-clinical variant or like a tendency or a personality trait that normal people can display. And I've seen estimates that it affects about 10% of the general public. So if you think about the term like emotional intelligence, they said emotional blindness. I would even swing the other way and say, like, if there's emotional intelligence, is this kind of emotional stupidity? And what's interesting is I have found many, 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 many papers indicating that this trait, alexithymia, is much more common in people with IBS and other things that are typically said to not have like an understood medical cause or not have an organic reason, things like fibromyalgia and chronic pain syndromes. So that's a whole can of worms, is like maybe a lot of the people we're working with actually have like a genuine difficulty with or inability to identify their emotional state and then describe it and like do something about it. And that might be the first step in healing is, So now, Mitch, take it away, please.
Yes. Now you gave me chills. You guys took me on a ride there, and I'm like, what the fuck am I going to say here? But like, so what are symptoms? From my take on symptoms are the body wants to express an emotion, a need, a want, a boundary, say no, yes, move towards what's safe, move away from what's safe. But it can't express that. Now, is it that we're emotionally retarded and we are unaware of emotions and we're not?
Ouch, that made it sound so much worse.
I know. That just...
Oh my God. Okay, continue.
So, that's going back to the book, Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, and my way of describing that was emotionally retarded parents. Sorry, that's not PC, but so. Is it that we're emotionally unaware, or was that not allowed when we were a kid? I think about boys who can express anger, and that's the only thing that's allowed. You could also say that's the only thing that's accessible, so that when I get upset, I'm pitching a fit and I'm crying or screaming because I'm not allowed to be sad. I'm not allowed to be angry. I'm not allowed. It doesn't feel good to feel shame or whatever else is coming up. And so then we hold that in. And that energy that's becomes a symptom. When we can't express ourselves and get that activation out of us, it gets louder and louder and louder, and eventually it becomes a symptom. Eventually it becomes IBS. It becomes tension in the gut. It becomes a tightness in the chest, the holding of the breast, the holding of the pelvic floor that becomes pelvic floor dysfunction. Or, for me, a lot of when I have gut issues, it's usually me holding. And so the thing that's kind of interesting too that I wanted to point out is these are all survival responses and coping strategies. That's what OCD is. And so, but we ended up thinking that they're personality traits. We think that's who we are, and we don't even know how to express ourselves or what an emotion is. When I came to this work, I was taught, I say you kind of come in two directions. It's either my body's on fire and I can't understand that, or I'm so shut down that I don't feel anything. Mine was both eventually. Once I could start to interpret the fear that I wasn't allowing, the grief that I wasn't allowing, the anger that wasn't allowed. Like, I was allowed to be angry on the football field, but that was not acceptable in the house, because that in the South is disrespect, right? And we don't do that here in the South. And so if I have all these parts of me, this is where kind of parts works come in, that I am not allowing and I'm not accepting, and I push them so far outside of my psyche that I can't express myself. And so what do I got to do? I either got to hold it in and shut down, or I eventually blow up and I get punished for being myself. So then I learned to hide myself. I learned to people please. I learned to be perfect. I learned to walk on eggshells. I learned to control myself and fix myself so that I can be presentable for everyone else, because I can be this. I can be, a good little boy, or a little girl that can be seen and not heard, or I can be a good boy and I can be angry, but I can't do these other things. And so that eventually these personality traits that are compulsive behaviors. So whenever I feel something that feels uncomfortable, I go right into the compulsion, and that just tells my nervous system that there's a threat. And what we're doing here is we're taught these. What was it? Crackhead Sally. Crackhead Sally is just a small version of us. It's a child.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a child consciousness. And so we're not thinking like an adult, but we have to meet that in a different way. If that wasn't accepted and allowed, that's when I started to do this work. That's the antidote to the compulsions, is like Nikki was pointing out, is to let it be there. It's like an algorithm. It's I can't remember the guy his name's Jesse. He's this German guy. He's great with this work. And he's like, the symptom is kind of like an algorithm. Your brain is not there to hurt you. And the first thing I teach my clients is, you're not broken. You're intelligently trying to cope with something that is uncomfortable and doesn't feel good. And so every time we feel that and we respond to it by trying to fix it, force it, figure it out, focus on it, fight it, get frustrated with it, it tells the algorithm, oh, you love this. You love this toy that I'm giving you. Yeah. And so we have to, that's where the education and awareness comes in. And my clients learn to map their compulsions. When I feel a symptom, what do I do? Well, the first thing I know is that maybe I do notice the bodily sensation, but that feels so uncomfortable that I don't want to do that. That now I'm going to ruminate. I'm going to come up in my head, and I'm going to start to think my way to safety to burn off the emotion of fear that I'm unwilling to feel. Now, that getting to that part where we can notice that it's fear takes a while. It's easier to notice the compulsion and to just not engage with it. And that kind of looks like, again, get back to the algorithm. If I'm liking and commenting on it and I'm responding to it all the time, it just tells my brain that I want more. And so what happens when I don't do the compulsion? Well, that's going to turn things up as well. Symptoms typically increase when we start to do this work. And that's why having somebody that can lend that wire, kind of like when we were a kid, we borrow the wire from our parent. We don't have that ventral portion of our nervous system on board. And so we use mom and dad to regulate. So can I use someone that's been through this, that understands, that can help me settle, build awareness so that I can see, oh, this is really just anger underneath this. This is really fear underneath this. And then I go into this response to make it go away. And that will feel good for a short period of time, because it's
like
controlled.
Scratching the bug bite, right? In the moment, it feels so good. And then the minute you stop itching, it itches 10 times worse.
Oh, yeah. Right? And then we shame ourselves and we go back in, we go harder into biohacking, harder into
fixing. You really scratch it good. But I want to interrupt you for a second, because I love the perspective of these patterns in the nervous system operating on an algorithm. I think that's such like a 21st century way of teaching this, but it really makes sense, because I know I've gone through periods of time where I intentionally try to screw with the Facebook algorithm, specifically with their ads. I've done this over the years, and I will intentionally not engage with any ads. I'll scroll past, I won't click, I won't look at the comments, I won't click, I won't do anything with it. And what I've noticed every time I've done this is Facebook starts serving me more ads initially. And they'll like double down on the stuff that they think I like, which for mine, it's usually like some health related thing or some business entrepreneurship related thing that I tend to click on. And so they'll like double down and they'll serve me more of those ads. Then, I don't know if this is relevant to this conversation. What's always really funny to me, every time I do this, after a period of like 2 to 3 weeks, Facebook then seems to throw in the towel and go, screw it. I don't know what she wants anymore. Let's just show her random stuff. And they will give me like stiletto high heels, lipstick. And they'll be like, she's a chick, right? She wants lipstick. She wants stilettos. And I'm like, Facebook, you don't even know me. Yeah. And they're like throwing darts randomly. And so similarly, like we have talked privately, Mitch, a little bit about like Somatic Experiencing International, that group. I remember I saw a reel of theirs some years ago, and it was this idea that initially regulation feels uncomfortable and it can feel noisy and you can get more symptoms. You could even get new symptoms because your body and your algorithm is freaking the fuck out and doesn't know what to do with it. Like if you've never felt safe and regulated in your entire life, when you get there, your body's going to be like, oh, what now? And so I don't know. Would you say that kind of works with the metaphor that you presented there of even possibly getting new symptoms?
Yeah, you nailed it. It's like I like pink hippos and now I want purple horses. The pink hippos are getting on my nerves. And so what do? You stop watching the pink hippos. You start clicking on purple horses. I don't know if I can keep up with that. And then what the algorithm does is it goes, oh, he doesn't like pink hippos anymore. He wants purple horses. And so he's looking at that. So I'm going to send him more of that. But every now and then, at first I would also say, of course, the symptoms are going to increase in that period. And then eventually they start to calm down. It feels like there is no timeline for this, but it's almost like apps on the phone that are draining your battery that you're unaware of. And so as you become more regulated, you build more awareness and capacity, you start to notice these apps. And so as you turn one off, another one turns on, or the one appears. And so it's like, so we don't judge this work by are my symptoms improving? We judge it by how are we responding to it. And then if I have gotten back into the purple horses, every now and then the pink hippos are going to show up. The algorithms go, are you sure? You used to really be into pink hippos. Do you sure you don't want to try this again? And you go, nah. And that's your job, is to get in touch with what gets you the values that you have. I would say mine are, freedom, connection, helping people, health. And even though I have these crazy symptoms that are absolutely overwhelming, it's going to tell me, hey, here's your anxiety. You're going to say, hey, anxiety, I hear you. I'm going to go work out. I'm going to go in the garden. I'm going to go for a walk, and I'm going to do the activity that I love with the symptom being there. And it's crazy that like every couple of weeks, it's like, okay, this guy isn't responding to the fatigue anymore. So maybe he doesn't need that anymore. He doesn't like that. That's how it did for me. I started a year ago. I was in bed all day long, all week long. There's this message in the nervous system where I'm like, you got to learn to rest. Absolutely. I agree with that. And your body can just be freaking bored. And you have been so used to focusing on fatigue that it's like, oh, he loves this thing. But when we start engaging in life, I was waiting for my symptoms to go away to do the things that I loved. And that when I could get in touch with that and go do the workout, eat the food, go hang out with the friends, go start the business, even if it's tiny, that's building capacity, doing the smallest. I started with 10 minutes a day. That's how I started building my podcast. I started building my business again. And after a while, I remember showing up and talking to my coach and going, oh my God, this crushing fatigue that I have tried everything to make go away, when I quit giving it attention, I miraculously got better. This is voodoo. This is crazy for someone who has hacked and fixed everything.
But have you tried CoQ10?
Yeah, absolutely. I overdosed on CoQ10 a million times.
But I don't know if you saw, like I was doing a chef's kiss while you were speaking at one point, because Amy and I have said this until we're deaf, dumb, and blind. You have to introduce the foods before you feel ready. You have to go live your life before you feel ready. You have to go play basketball with your friends before you feel ready. And that in and of itself is the healing work. That is teaching your nervous system that it's going to be okay. That's teaching your nervous system that you're not sick, you're not broken, you're not stuck, you're not without hope. You can go play basketball. You can go eat that food. And like, it's not to say that it's going to be easy peasy breezy the first few times that you do it. Like, it might feel really challenging to leave the house and go do these things. It might feel really scary and challenging to eat that new food. And you might even get some bloating or some symptoms when you introduce a new food, but you have to do it anyway. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I love the way you present it as like the nervous system kind of going, or the algorithm going, hey, this guy loves this. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this is like a more scientific version of the conversation of quote unquote manifesting. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's like, it's this understanding of how the brain works and how the nervous system works and how these protective survival strategies and coping mechanisms work. Mm-hmm. But I'll throw this out too, while it's top of mind. The cool thing about the nervous system is that it can change and it can adapt and it can mold itself to the environment over time. And the way that I've presented it before on this podcast is, if you have two paths that both lead to the same destination, and it's two paths going through a field. One path is beautifully laid down, like you could tell 100 people a day walk on this path, right? All the grass is stomped down. It's a nice wide path. It's bushwhacked. It's clear. Hell, maybe it's even paved, right? But it's also like super all over the place, and it's going to take you 5 years to get to your destination, right? You have this pretty pristine bushwhacked nice path, and then you have like the jungly path that's like barely a path. You can tell somebody walked that way once, but it's all overgrown and there's probably like snakes and ticks and shit in it. You arrive at these two paths, and again, they both go to the same destination. Which one are you going to pick? 100% of the time, your nervous system is going to pick the path that is nicely laid down and nicely worn. It's much harder to convince yourself to take that other path. But you don't know. There could be like leprechaun gold under all that grass. You don't know until you try it. But my point is, with the nervous system, your nervous system is making millions and billions of decisions every single day. And you're choosing, oh, how am I going to wake up today? How am I going to, eat my breakfast today? How am I going to handle my commute today? How am I going to handle my interaction with my spouse? How am I going to handle my interaction with my kid? How am I going to do this? And all of those little decisions, we tend to default into whatever we've done before. Whether it's good or not.
Whatever's safe.
Whatever.
Need to safe.
Well, yeah. Whatever you felt was safe.
Yeah, like think about procrastination. Procrastination is a freeze response. Mm-hmm. If I can avoid the thing if I really want it to, and we say like, oh, I can choose to start my business, or let's just say post on Instagram. So I know I want to post on Instagram. It feels really good. I'm excited. I got a lot to share. But every time I go to do it, I'm checking out. I'm distracting myself. And basically what's going on there is it's a threat, because what happens if we succeed? We get seen, we get judged, we may succeed and we may not. And the fear of succeeding and being seen is so much bigger than just avoiding it. And so we're going to make up a story that says, oh, I got busy, or, I just didn't feel like it that day. And we'll delay our life because of fear and shut down. And that's, again, we have to be able to see that we can't, and if we try to force it, and that may be kind of how you do it, a little bit of titrated forcing and observing all of these patterns. But if we just try to hack it, let's say, throw ourselves to the top of to the outcome, we're just reinforcing that's a problem. So we might be able to white knuckle that for a while, but if we don't meet the underlying fear and observe that, it's not a somatic process to release it. I thought it was like that. That's just a lot of effort. So if we can't effort and white knuckle our way there, the better way is to work with these patterns, work with the emotion underneath, learn to be with that fear and that uncertainty, and build the capacity to do the thing that we love and feel the uncomfortable feelings, accept and allow that, and then we can do it without having to manage it.
And if I can pause you on that note for a quick second too, I at some point I would love to walk through like some of the steps of like doing the work, so to speak. And I know that this comes up sometimes with like other guests we've had on, the idea of noticing where you're at, kind of noticing the tendency or the pattern that gets initiated from that, right? The stories you tell yourself, the compulsions that you take part in. But one of the things that I feel like can get misconstrued is this idea of like sitting with an emotion or allowing an emotion. And what I want to throw in there, correct me if you think I'm wrong, is that doesn't mean you're happy about it, right? Like you can observe, oh, hey, I'm feeling really anxious and I'm feeling that compulsion to like go on Reddit and research the shit out of this again. And you can kind of mentally check in and say like, I don't like it, but there's like nothing I could do in the moment, right? Like my prefrontal cortex is probably logged offline and there's nothing I could do about it in the moment. So it is what it is. I'm going to be anxious right now and I'm going to try to go about my day. And I think that's different. I think sometimes when people hear like you need to sit with an emotion, I think that they have this idea of like, I have anxiety and I love it and I love myself and I love everything about myself and this is totally okay. Like toxic positivity almost. And I don't think that's it, right? Like, are you allowed to notice a sensation or an emotion or a feeling and like dislike it still?
I love that. Okay. So sitting with it is what we hear in the somatic world. Like we have to feel to heal, right? Well, you give somebody that has OCD that, or dysregulation or sensitization. I don't really like the labels, but it kind of gives an idea of what's going on. And so what do? Oh, I'm going to sit with this all day long. I'm going to make it my full-time job. I'm going to sit on the couch and wait until this gets better and just get flooded with emotion that I have no capacity for. So we have a window of tolerance, things we're able to feel, we have capacity to feel. And if we don't have capacity, for example, that'd be like walking into the gym and trying to deadlift 500 pounds, like day one. You can't do that. What's going to happen? You're going to hurt your back. You're going to, whatever, you're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt or injured at the best.
Maybe for you, but Amy could deadlift 500 pounds.
You look like it, Amy. You're a beast.
I'm so swole. You don't know.
So, but think about it. Like if we're sitting that and white knuckling all the time, I have my clients hear about accepting and allowing, and that's what they want to do all the time. I did it myself. I get it. Ultimately, it floods the system and all the emotions start coming in, and we don't have capacity for that. We shut down. We get worse. Symptoms get louder because there's a threat there. So the sitting with it can be scanning, kind of like we were talking earlier. Is it gone? Is it gone? We're focusing on it. We're giving it a lot of attention. As soon as we know that we're giving it attention, we're treating it as a threat. And then we're reinforced that there's a problem. We're getting flooded. So I'll give you an example of this that I had recently that I had to learn. I thought I was being the best somatic coach on the planet, right? Like I was in a podcast. We were talking about anger. And we're fucking, see my face. If you're on audio, I'm making all these mean face. I'm getting into the faces of anger, right? Historically, anger's been hard for me unless I've got a football helmet on. And so we were talking about in the podcast, a close friend of mine, and I started feeling way too much activation. And I'm like, whoo, this is a lot. And I think I brought attention to it. In the past, I would have probably asked her to like, let's work with this activation now. And then I left the podcast, didn't really bring it up, we didn't do that like we would in the past. I went for a walk. I focused on the sensation. I accepted it. I allowed it. I brought up the part and the fear underneath. I cried. I hugged myself. And then I felt better. But then upon reviewing that with my coach, with my therapist, I just gave 30 minutes of my life to this sensation. And that is a compulsion. That compulsion felt good because it was controlling it, because I had a way of doing it. I don't do protocols a whole lot with my clients anymore. The way to do that, maybe at first, is to just remove the resistance, to just do my life, to just know, like, we can't even move into acceptance until we have the capacity to do that. And to do that, we need education. We need to see that every time, and you see my pattern, every time I feel uncomfortable, this is what I do. And can I just watch it? And eventually we pull up to the stop sign. Eventually we're able to see ourselves in the issue. We're able to stop ourselves from doing it. And eventually we just don't do it anymore. But we need those crutches. We need those little drops of safety that says, I can be with uncomfortable. Real capacity is I can feel this uncomfortable thing, and I can also know that I'm safe and I can do my life. And so can I accept it, allow it to be here, and just go do the thing that you love to do? If somebody's listening to this podcast and they have something because of their symptom, a food maybe, because we're talking about food a lot here, what's the food that you've been avoiding for so long? You're scared of it. Go fucking eat that food tonight. Go have a bite of it. Imagine it. Start with imagining it. What happens when you imagine it? This is all building awareness. Oh man, when I start imagining it, I start sweating. And then I avoid it, and I go back and I research or whatever, reach out to Nikki at 3:00 in the morning, and then I'm never having that food again.
Well, go ahead. One thing that's really interesting about that is I think what you're describing too is a total attitude change. So like kind of telling yourself now, like, no matter what happens, I can handle it. I think that people don't have that attitude in this space. They let like the fear sort of consume them. And it's very hard. Again, I've been there. I've been restrictive eating. I know how intense food fear gets. But I think the more that you can latch onto that attitude of like, yeah, I'm going to go do this thing. I'm afraid, but like I can handle my symptoms that come up. I also think something that like we're dancing around too, that seems to really help patients with IBS specifically, is the idea that like you really can't change your symptoms like moment to moment. Like it feels like you can in a lot of ways. Like IBS is a gut-brain connection issue that can't really be solved with like one singular supplement. Maybe a supplement helps symptoms, which is great. But like IBS, it takes time to sort of solve these symptoms. So releasing this idea that you can even really like fix this system moment to moment and being able to say like, oh no, this is going to take some time. So I don't need to be like assessing and scanning all the time. I can kind of trust that if I pour in and nurture myself and nurture the systems that help my gut, that I'll eventually get better, but I'm not going to like lock in on the outcome of symptom relief day 2 of starting something. And I think that's where a lot of gut patients get into trouble. And I think in part because that's what all the solutions promise is like, oh, you go low FODMAP, you ever feel better tomorrow? Oh, you go on these herbal protocols, you'll feel amazing in 2 weeks. Try rifaximin, like you'll feel like on cloud 9. And so it creates all these unrealistic expectations. And that's what I think perpetuates this idea that like they do have control if they can just track symptoms enough and see patterns and that sort of thing. And I think what I've generally seen over the years is the more someone can kind of say like, oh, I'm here for the long game, IBS wise, the more they can release some of those compulsory habits of like, oh yeah, I don't have control. I can meet this with like softness and grace. I don't need to like urgently respond to every change in my gut function. Like I don't need to respond to bloating every day because like I really can't change it day to day, like super often. There could still be times where that's true. And I think like, you know, it's the hard part about, being aware of your body, like some body awareness, like you said at the beginning of the episode, Nikki, like your friend, I feel like she's a celebrity now, the one that only poops 3 times a month. But like, okay, she doesn't have much body awareness. So maybe, or like, again, I would say there's nothing tied to that constipation. Whereas like someone, okay, maybe realizing, oh, if I eat enough fiber, like I poop a little bit more or whatever it is. Like if you can kind of get a gauge of what might help or what might not. But I think their brains weaponize that so much that they're like so locked into every sort of shift and change. So I think for IBS patients specifically, I've seen so many people, if they can just stop looking at day-to-day changes and start seeing more broadly, like where am I in a month? Where am I in 2 months? Like again, like seeing things much more expanded, that can help get out of the rumination part a little bit. At least gets that kind of the ball moving in the right direction.
And I think that's a good point. And I'll make kind of an analogy with another health related topic. We have talked about on and off over the years, Amy, we've talked about the idea of getting like a cheap calendar from the dollar store and getting stickers and marking how many good days you have and tracking that month by month. And what I usually tell people when I tell them this is like, that first month might look like a shit show. And that's why you're here. You're here working with me because you don't have a lot of good days right now. I get that. But you have to keep doing it because as you go month by month, oftentimes you will see this like really slow incremental progress where, okay, maybe the first month that we meet, maybe you only have 2 good days. Right? And like, hey, that's better than 0, but you only have 2. And then the next month you have 3. And then the next month you have 6. And then the next month you have 17. And then, and it's like, you wouldn't know that you were making progress and you wouldn't be able to celebrate that win and like know you're on the right track if you weren't tracking this. Because instead, what most people are doing is they're getting caught on this roller coaster ride of day to day. And the analogy I wanted to share is it's kind of analogous to the weight loss world. Like if you weigh yourself every single day, or heaven forbid, if you weigh yourself multiple times a day, right? Like, oh, I'll weigh myself before I poop, after I work out, before I work out, before I go to bed, right? Like there are people doing that. But if you weigh yourself every single day, good luck, because that's going to be really noisy data. Like for women, that's going to be influenced by your hormones. Like, are you in the follicular phase or the luteal phase? Are you ovulating? Are you on your period? It's going to be, influenced by things like salt intake. If you went to the Mexican restaurant and had a ton of salty chips for dinner and you're retaining more water, right? If you're constipated and you didn't poop that day, you're going to have extra weight because you didn't poop that day. Like there are so many variations of, things that can change your weight on like a minute by minute, day by day basis. The people who try to lose weight and they weigh themselves every single day, inevitably, in my observation, always fail at that goal because they're getting too granular and too sucked in, and they're making inferences out of what they think is data, but it's actually just noise. And, it's like, oh my God, I gained a pound. I have to do another fasting day. And it's like, no, you just ate more salt yesterday. Like chill out, man. And so similarly, I think that very frequently the people that we work with, people who have been told that they have IBS or SIBO or leaky gut or candida or whatever have you, like they will kind of bug out because, oh my God, I have a little bit more bloating today. Or I didn't have as good of a poop today compared to yesterday. And it's like, you get so lost in that experience that you can't zoom out and see the forest for the trees. And that, again, like, I think that's a control thing. I think that's a fear thing. I think it's, again, you're getting like sucked into this spiral of symptoms equal danger and I need to do something about it immediately. But yeah, a lot of these things that we're talking about, dietary change, mental health, nervous system work, like it takes time, just like weight loss, and you can't check in that frequently.
I agree with all of that. And I'm going to add like a little something to it that's helped me and my clients. And I kind of hit on this earlier, but we don't judge our progress by how our symptoms are improving. We judge it by how we're relating to them on the good days and the bad days. think about someone who has a good day and they've had so many bad days that they're waiting for the other shoe to drop. So it's like, oh, I had a good day, and when's it going to get bad again? Now I'm focusing on it again. I'm going back into all those F's.
Yeah,
I like, there's a guy called the mindful gardener, and he calls it meh. There's this guy that sings, he makes this noise. He goes, meh. I can't remember what he calls it. If you want to go into meh, I had a good day, whatever. I had a bad day, whatever. We're building strength. We're building resilience. When we try to constantly avoid, we create fragility. You look at like Brian Johnson, the biohacking guy who has perfect labs, who avoids the sun, controls everything. And he's on the same fragility level. I think it's kind of like an arc like this. I think chronic biohacking and control and being perfect is over here. It's fragile, just as fragile. If I just had beer all day, I mean, you might be fine with that. You know, if I try to think of something horrible, if I drink McDonald's every single day and I drink hard liquor every single day, that's also fragile, right?
Yeah.
It's like this, real life happens in the middle, being uncomfortable, having bad days, having good days. And real safety is what we're talking about here. Real safety says, I have the capacity to have a bad day or make a bad decision. I don't even like good and bad. Can I meet myself if I don't like my decision? Can I meet myself if I do like my decision? Because if we're getting stuck in there, we're shutting down, we're dysregulated. Can I take that as information and pivot? And can I just let the symptoms come with me? And it's almost like, hey, Mitch, and I don't have this nailed yet. I'm learning it. You know, that's why I'm teaching it too. Hey, Mitch, do you have anxiety today? I don't know. I'm having a great day. The sun's out. It's beautiful outside. I just got to do a nice workout and I had some good food. Like, let's go watch a movie. That's what I want to do today. And that's the recipe for healing.
Yeah, I feel like it's the best word that I think I can use to describe it is just kind of surrendering to the process and not getting so bogged down by every little shift or change. And I think we've talked about this too on the podcast is I do think self-compassion becomes a big thing. Like, even if you are feeling like I think it's okay to say like, I'm struggling and kind of meet this with a soft energy versus a very judgy energy. A lot of the energy where you're like in the perfectionistic mindset and you're critiquing and you're trying to fix is like a very judgmental attitude too. And I think, again, it can be rooted in fear for sure. But I think I've been really bad historically at using self-compassion. So like, okay, like I had a bad day, like I'm struggling a little bit. I'm okay to sort of like tell myself that, like, okay, like, yeah, this day's kind of sucked, but like I was still able to do the things I needed to do. And I think it's okay to give yourself a lot of grace and to approach this with like a soft tenderness. And I think that has also helped patients too, in a way, is like if I can approach their gut healing with like a tender like softness and like a curiosity versus like a judgment of like, oh my God, your symptoms shifted on Tuesday and Wednesday. Like, we need to assess that. What did you eat Monday? Like, I think if as a provider, I can provide that like calmness and like stillness, softness, however you want to describe it. But I think it's rooted in kind of like having some compassion for yourself. And like, again, there's with self-compassion, you're allowing the emotions and fear and doubt and things to be there, but you're just meeting yourself with like love and tenderness to a degree. I think like that can be very helpful with some of these issues too. Like if you can kind of shift how you're responding in that way, which it's very hard if you're not used to that. If you're from where I too, Mitch, could be very perfectionistic. I feel like there were things kind of growing up that made me more that way. I feel like love my family, I love my dad, but like he was pretty intense with me in sports. Like, so like, oh man, like every game, it's like a critique. It's like, no, you can't just have a decent game. It's like, you had a good game, but did you see those 2 turnovers were really bad? Like, it was like very, not that he was super intense. I feel like a lot of people have similar circumstances, but that kind of led me to much more of a perfectionistic mindset. It wasn't just that. I think he probably has that within himself, like a very kind of perfectionistic, he's an engineer, like black and white kind of thinking. But yeah, I think the more that you can kind of practice that like leaning more into that softness, that gentleness towards yourself, the better with this process too.
Well, it's cutting yourself some slack is maybe another way to frame it. And, at the end of the day, I forget who this quote is attributed to, but don't take life too seriously because nobody gets out alive.
Yeah,
Quote, right? It's just, it's true though.
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, like, we all have goofs and whoopsie daisies and make bad decisions and good decisions, and we have bad days and good days. And I would throw into this conversation too, I think that one element of all of this is like the world we live in, the society we live in. Hold on one second, I have to cough. That would have been deafening on a microphone. So courtesy to you to mute myself.
I was like, that was the softest cough I've ever heard. You muted.
Well, no, I muted myself. So, but if you think about it, I think that part of what gets tangled in this is people's perception of what is normal. And I think that the internet has made this a million times worse.
Yes.
But if you think about it, right, like we usually talk about it through the lens of beauty standards or like keeping up with the Joneses, right? So like you scroll Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, pick your poison, man. They're all the same. But you scroll social media and the internet and you're seeing reels and TikToks and YouTube videos and advertisements of women with perfect hair, perfect makeup, no skin texture whatsoever, not a single blemish on their entire body, gigantic perky boobs, skinny little waist, ripped abs, great ass, and it's like, so then women, as this example goes, like we sort of internalize that and we think, oh, I'm less than. I'm not as attractive as her. I'm not as beautiful as her. I need to buy makeup and hair products and get implants and go to the gym. And I need to strive to get to that point where I look like her. But you don't realize there's filters wiping out all of her skin texture. There's pounds of makeup and like hours in hair and makeup. There's, her home is staged. Like I've heard about, there are apparently one of the things that happens is like influencers will have the house that they live in and then they will either rent or purchase a second home that is completely immaculate and completely staged.
Oh my God.
And then this is a thing, and then they will take like their perfectly dressed, groomed, immaculate children. They'll take their family to the other house and like stage, oh, a day in my life. Oh, we're going to make organic Pop-Tarts with the kids today. And oh, life on the homestead. And oh, isn't it perfect? And then they go back to their shitty, messy, chaotic real house. And like none of us are none the wiser, right? But anyway, my point is we see perfect people, beautiful people living their perfect life, and all of them have washboard abs and they don't have a speck of bloating. And they look like they take the biggest, most glorious dump every morning. And we think that we need to be like them and that's normal. And it's not. Like normal people with normal guts have good tummy days and bad tummy days. Like the vast majority of women who have a menstrual cycle, they will have some degree of GI symptoms in relation to their period. Like some women get more constipation leading up to their period or during their period. Some women get more diarrhea. Some women get more bloating. Some people get a bit of reflux. And it's, our bodies are on this hormonal roller coaster ride every month of our lives. It's normal that affects us. It's normal that like, maybe you don't feel 100% every single day of your life, or you have a little bit of a headache, or you are a bit tired, or whatever. But I think that we all have it in our heads from movies and TV and media and social media and the internet and advertisements that like, if you aren't living this perfect life and you're in absolute perfect health and you're not biohacking the crap out of all of your numbers, then you are like not living your best life and you'd better fix that. And that's not true. That's like a warped version of reality that we've been force fed for decades. And it's just that's not how real humans work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that you said that, having a podcast that's in the mental health space, I'll have people come on that I've looked up to and learned so much from. And when they tell me some of the things that they're going through, I'm like, oh my God, you're human too. Because my view is distorted of that. And that's where, again, education, awareness. If I can understand that I don't have to be 100% peak of the iceberg all the time, so that I can accept myself a little bit more. And that's where life is messy. The more we can share that, the more we can authentically be ourselves. Then we're not efforting and trying to control everything, and our energy comes back. We don't feel so damn fatigued and we can't, sleep at nighttime, or we have, gut issues because we think we're less than, and we're comparing the worst part of ourselves to the best part of other people. And that's something that is so dysregulating, and we're not even, we need to bring some awareness to that.
Yeah. Well, and I will say too, once again, I picked today's t-shirt special for this episode, Mitch. So for those of you who can't see it, my t-shirt says F being an adult. And, I did that to be a little bit prickly in today's episode, but like this experience of living on Earth and adulting, as we millennials like to say, it's hard. It's beautiful and hilarious and wonderful and terrible all at the same time, but like, it's hard. If you have children, like parenting is freaking hard. If you work with other people, interacting with people is hard. If you're married or in a relationship, like dealing with other people and their, seeing their best and worst selves, and like living with somebody or interacting with somebody on a regular basis, that's hard. All of this is hard. Earth is a hard place to be, but like I said, it can still be beautiful and wonderful and funny and special and like amazing at the same time. But it's like, I think that all of us are learning how to regulate and learning how to just make it in this world one moment at a time, one day at a time. So yeah, don't let people fool you on the internet thinking that they have it all together and they live a perfect life. And like, oh, if you just buy this proprietary blend supplement, then you can have washboard abs like me. Like,
oh yeah,
real people get bloating.
Yeah.
Real people have weird poop days.
And if you can't see that, like for me, I got chewed up and spit up by the wellness industry.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel like, everything we just talked about, if you can see what's out there and you feel that about yourself, well, then that's when we leave ourselves. We're looking to the external, fix me, heal me. And I went the next book, the next diet, the next supplement, and then you're in this sensitized state. You're thinking, I would say this, I do everything right, and I cannot understand why I feel like shit. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. And it starts with building the awareness and the connection with our body and what's going on, normalizing the weird and messy shit that we do that's called being a human, and then learn to accept ourselves, give ourselves permission to be ourselves authentically, so that we're not doing all this effort stuff, trying to make ourselves the illusion that we think is perfection. It's bullshit.
Yeah. I think I love the term messy just in general describing this. Like, I love that you use that term, Mitch, just like life and being a human's messy, because I think people understand that, but I think they don't necessarily take that and then look at it through the lens of their like gut journey of like, oh no, this is going to be kind of a messy process. It's not going to be this smooth protocol. People want to be given like the SIBO protocol and know like, okay, in 4 weeks, I'm going to be better, or like know the exact diet that's going to make them better. Like, I think that there's this expectation that like, oh no, we've like cracked the code to gut health and we know this protocol to a T.
I have a crystal ball and I can tell the future. And
right.
On day 23, you will be 92% better.
Yes.
Pinky promise.
And I think, sometimes I even had, I have patients all the time, like, so I don't know what's going to eat to not give me symptoms. Like, you have to figure that out. And I'm like, no, we have to figure that out. We need to like kind of add stuff in and like see what works. Like I can't know that without you trying stuff. And granted, like that shouldn't necessarily be the goal either, of just like manipulating the diet as being the only way to control symptoms. But I think like it is crazy to me. A lot of people, not crazy, I totally understand where this comes from, but like people struggle with that messiness in the IBS space in particular, partly because I think there are protocols and people promoting this is the exact way to do it. This is the exact SIBO protocol that healed me, so it's going to work for you. Or like, this is the protocol that I use for all my SIBO patients. And that just makes people also feel more inadequate because they do these things and it doesn't work for them. So then they think they're this crazy hard case. And so I think that that's a really good point to hang on to if you're working in the IBS space. The other thing I'll mention just generally about wellness, because you were saying the wellness industry kind of like took you in, spit you out, and like really messed with you. One thing, being someone in the health and wellness space, is that some of the people too, like, are so dysregulated. I know you were talking about like having people on your podcast, but like, man, some of the people just in real life that you interact with over time, and you'll see like, oh my gosh, like this person does not understand that what they're doing is like totally disconnecting them from the things that would bring them joy. One of the examples I think I've talked about on this podcast is I used to go to this gym all the time before I had kids. It's a little bit far for me now, so I don't go anymore. And this guy actually doesn't work there anymore, so maybe he's found better balance. But the guy that owned the gym, first off, he always felt horrible. Like, we would talk about different things, like I need to do a liver cleanse and all this stuff, and like I'd kind of be like, okay, well, but like, so we'd kind of talk about different stuff. And
did we go to the same gym?
Maybe. But he would always be like, but he was always getting up at like 4 a.m., training all the time, like, working out for 6 hours a day, basically. Maybe not hardcore, but like he's lifting weights all day.
And it was a mystery why he didn't feel good?
Well, and then he would drive like 3 hours to get water, like an hour and a half to this well, an hour and a half back. Like, he was doing all this stuff that was so intense. And it's like all that effort when you could have just been like, dating or, like doing things that actually
go to the movies,
you to things that are important to you. And again, like, it's not that he didn't want to be better. It's like that he was just focusing on the wrong, that he was focusing on things that weren't, really what brought him life to a degree. Like, he was just burning himself out to a crisp. But there's so many people like that in the wellness space where they're a perfectionist and they think like, oh man, I just have to meditate every day for 60 minutes. Yeah. And then my nervous system's going to be balanced. And it's like, well, if you meditate every day and you aren't connecting with any friends or family, you're not really going to be balanced. I'm sorry. So like, there's a lot of discussions that we have with patients too. Like, you've probably experienced this, Nikki, where it's like, oh, this person's meditating every day. So they just are like, well, I'm covering my nervous system. I'm meditating 60 minutes every day. And
that's
it's like,
done.
Okay,
done deal.
No. But you also haven't been out with your friends in 3 months. So like, we need to figure out, like, that's the foundation. If you want to layer in meditation, by all means. But like, if you're not like doing things that bring you joy or
I think just
pleasure,
living your life.
Yeah, living your life.
Right. Like the guy you described, I don't think he was living his life. He was, again, like optimizing and biohacking and getting the best water on planet Earth. And like, that's neat. But like, why? And one of my favorite frameworks that I heard at an herbal conference a couple years ago, it came back up at the herbal conference this year. The same guy brought it up, but he said, really clinically, only 2 questions matter at the end of the day. Is this thing, and it could be a dietary strategy, a supplement, meditation, movement, it could be anything. Is this thing helping my patient live longer, or is it helping them live better? Like, if those 2 things, if you're not hitting either of those things, like and I'm sure like this guy might have made the argument of like, oh, but I'm getting the best water in the whole wide world and that's going to help me live longer because I'm avoiding these toxins and yada, yada, yada. But like, I guess within reason or with like some scientific evidence to support it. But I think that people get lost in the frantic scramble of it. And they don't realize like, oh, every time I do a SIBO protocol or I do the elemental diet or I do the carnivore diet, it's miserable. Like, I can't interact with any of my friends because I can't go out to restaurants. And I have to cook, I have to prep all of my food at home. And I hate everything that goes into my mouth. And I'm trying to chew every bite of food 30 times, every single bite of food, 30
Oh my
chews.
God. Yeah.
And, it's like, it's, is the thing that you're doing in order to chase health, like, is it making you healthier or happier? If the answer is no, then you might want to bag it and move on to something else. But
yeah, I mean, I was him. That's exactly describing to a T how I met life, and there was just no joy in it. But that was my survival pattern. That's what kept me alive. I can say I hate that version of me, but thank God that I had that version of me, because those are the things that allowed me to feel safe when I felt so out of control and on fire with symptoms. It made me feel like I was doing something productive when it was really control, and it was robbing me of life. And that is part of this process. We got to see that, and we got to feel. People ask me all the time, how do you get guys to do this work? I don't get anybody to do it, but they typically have felt the pain, and that's mapping the pattern. We got to see it enough that we're done with it. We're exhausted with it. We see what it's costing us. It's costing us our life and living a fulfilling life, costing our potential in life and the possibilities that we have, because we're driving 3 hours for water. I mean, every single example you just listed, that was me. So if that's you, give me a shout.
Well, and I think it ties in a couple of things that we've touched on, right? Is that, like what Amy described, for example, it's so much effort. Like, that guy, bless his heart, he was putting in so much effort with the, training for 6 hours a day, driving 3 hours to get water. That's exhausting. That's so much effort. And it goes back to what you mentioned, Mitch, which is something we have heard a bajillion times, Amy, which is, I feel like I'm doing everything. I'm doing all the right things. I've done it all. And like, people will come to us and they'll say, I've tried everything. I've done it all. And they're kind of like, there's this vein of like, I don't think you're going to be able to help me because I've already tried everything. And I'll tell you, 100% of the people who came to me saying that, I have been able to find some stone that was unturned that they could focus on. Like, okay, you tried everything, meaning you took every supplement on planet Earth, but like, you haven't focused on your sleep yet. Maybe we look at that. But it's oftentimes people get stuck in this place of, I'm putting so much effort in and I'm exhausted and I'm frustrated and I'm frazzled and I feel like I've done everything and I've spent so much money and like I put in so much effort and I don't have any reward for it. But again, it's like you're spinning your wheels. Oftentimes you're spinning your wheels in this really like frantic place. And like you said, Mitch, oftentimes you're putting in that effort and that overachiever energy because that is a way that you're trying to control your body. You're trying to control your life. You're trying to control your situation. And it's like the tighter you cling onto it, the more you're crushing the butterfly in your hand. But then you're complaining that like the butterfly is mangled now. And it's like, well, you need to loosen your grip, man. But it can be hard. If you're terrified that the butterfly is going to fly away, it can be really, really hard to hold that butterfly loosely and just let it be there.
Something my therapist and I were talking about yesterday, she says, I want to talk about this word healing journey. She's like, do you think what you've been doing for the last 20 years was a healing journey? Like, no, but that's how it was packaged to me. Healing for me, I haven't done a somatic practice. I haven't done a nervous system exercise since I don't know when. It has literally been so much of stopping, doing all the things that I thought I needed to be whole and start living my life. And for me, one of the most healing things is I'm drinking beer again. I love me a Guinness. One of the first things that happened to me was I was brought a test that said I was borderline celiac. And I thought, oh, that's going to cure all my problems. And last night I told you guys about a stomach thing that I was dealing with. That's what my memory went to, was the first health coach I worked with bringing me gluten-free beer and me going, oh my God. And then having this story that I remember, they can't have gluten ever again. I had 3 months, didn't have any gluten. Me and my wife went and, ate Mexican food or something like that. I would tell the story on podcasts back in the day. And we had a food hangover. We felt bad the next day, and that just locked it in. That reinforced that belief that this is bad. And I 80% of my diet's pretty excellent. And I fuck off the rest of the time. Yeah. And I less and less I let go. and just do what feels good. If I didn't have the symptom, I ask my clients this all the time. If you didn't have a symptom right now, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to, you see them light up. Oh, I want to do this. That's part of the letting the brain see outside of this dark hellhole that we're living in and seeing what possibility and see what you actually want. Those hell yeses, follow that. I'd be at the pub having a beer with my friends. Go do that shit. I'd go to Chicago and have a deep dish pizza. I've been waiting on that for 20 years. Go do it. That's the healing process, is living your life. And the wellness industry and biohacking and optimization tells us control everything. You know, have you done this yet? And it's often not more control, it's less.
Yeah. Well, and to go back to one of my favorite pastimes on this podcast, I want to throw functional medicine under the bus. We have entire episodes dedicated to the problems within the functional medicine space. And I know, like you and I, Mitch, we talked about it off camera a while back. And that was part of it. Like when you say the wellness industry chewed you up and spit you out, some of that was the functional medicine community and like health coaches and this sort of world. And we've talked about this in whole episodes, so I won't berate it too much. But, you know, unfortunately, there's like this unspoken element where every influencer, pretty much everybody you're going to see online, including the three of us, mind you, and every functional medicine doctor you go to, or naturopath you go to, or health coach you go to, they are also a business owner. And I think there are plenty of good people out there. I'm not saying that they're all bad and evil and out to get your money, but I think that there's a ratio, right? There's got to be at least 1% of the entrepreneurial drive and the drive to make money. Otherwise, you'd go out of business real quick, right? So every entrepreneur has to have at least a little bit of that drive to make money. And then there's also that drive to help people. And I think there's varying ratios that you will see. I think some people, you know, they're 99% about helping people and they're 1% about making money. And frankly, you're probably not going to find them online because they're lousy business owners and they're not making money and they have no presence. You know, so like that sounds like the ideal, but those people are probably broke. But there are a lot of the people you see prominently on Instagram and YouTube and whatever, like they're very much treating what they do and what they say as a business. And unfortunately, with functional medicine specifically, they make most of their money by selling you on expensive testing and teaching you to not trust yourself and not trust your own experience. And they peddle the idea of test, don't guess. We have a whole episode with that title. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. But they say in every goddamn seminar, every goddamn conference, every Instagram post, you name it.
Yeah.
Test, don't guess. You haven't had your GI mapped yet? Oh my God, you rube. I can't believe you. How are you going to heal your gut if you haven't had a GI map? My God. Yeah. You know, and it's like, and they want to be the ones who hold the keys and say, ooh, but you can't get this test without me to order it for you. And you don't know what to do with the test unless I interpret it for you. And you can't get the best supplements from Pure Encapsulations unless you get them from my office or my full script. And it just, that's the business model, is like they make money. And for the record, like we all make money when you come in to do appointments with us, when you buy supplements from our office or our full script, when you buy, you know, the GI map test and then, or the OAT test or the Cyrex test or whatever, and you pay us to interpret it and give you advice based on that test. And it's a whole racket. But that's wrapped up in all of this too, is like, you know, I think that there are a lot of people who are either trying to help or for keeping their business model alive. And they're selling you on the idea that this test needs to look perfect. If this doesn't look perfect, you're going to get a disease. You already have a disease. You're almost dead. You're practically dead already. So you might as well get 2 GI maps while you're at it. You know, and and again, it very much feeds off of and perpetuates and exacerbates food fear to a point of overt eating disorders at times. And, you know, just like distrust in yourself and like being hyper aware of every little sensation. And, you might go to a well-intended practitioner who teaches you to take your pulse before and after you eat your meal. And if your pulse goes up more than 20 beats per minute, then that means that you're having an allergic reaction to the food and you have to detective work and figure out what food you're reacting to. And oh my God. And, it's like, again, I think that the degree to which people are innocent and well-intended and the degree to which they are just running a business and trying to get your money varies from person to person. But the reality in that world as a whole is that they make money by preying on your fear and teaching you to not trust yourself and teaching you that you can't possibly be healthy without their supplements and their tests. And that's a big reason why I know, like, Amy, you feel the same way. Like, neither of us tell people we do functional medicine anymore.
It's true.
I don't use that term. Sometimes I'll use that term in my story and like how I got to where I am, but I don't tell people I do functional medicine because I think it's just...
Love it. I love that.
It's yuck.
I do think too, it gets people who are a little bit more perfectionistic and like, they totally go for the functional medicine model and they don't want to admit that it was maybe the wrong model. So they keep doing it over. Like they get kind of stuck in that model to a degree too. Like where it's like, okay, it takes almost busting maybe some of your ego too. Like I even remember feeling this along my journey as like, oh my gosh, I was going hardcore down the functional medicine, hardcore down restrictive diets, and like doing lots of supplements and like doing all the wrong things. And like, I think sometimes it's hard to admit like, ooh, I went down the wrong path in like a gentle way to be like, oh, maybe that wasn't the right path for me. I think people struggle with that too. I've worked with a lot of people who have a hard time forgiving, like which I don't even think it's something that really requires forgiveness, but like, this is just the word that comes up where they're extra hard on themselves for doing like stuff that might have made them worse, over time. Like maybe they overly restricted or whatever it is. And they're like very critical of themselves. Like, I can't believe I did this. Like it's like almost bitter and critical to themselves. And it's like, okay, we made mistakes. You were trying to do the best that you could with the information you had. But we have to move on from those feelings too and like kind of work through them because it's stagnating you. I think a lot of people do that in the functional medicine world, and it might be sometimes why people get stuck there. It's like they almost don't want to like admit that it's the wrong path. I don't know, some sort of thing that happens, I feel like.
I'm going to throw them under the bus again because I think part of that pattern is because of the practitioners. So if you think about it, say like just we're going to play a game of, for instance, like Amy, say that you come to me with bloating and constipation and I, with the information I have at the time, I decide to do a SIBO test and a GI map. And I tell you, gosh, golly gee, you have methane, SIBO, you have overgrowth of bad guys, and we're going to do a kill protocol and we're going to put you on this diet and you're going to be hunky-dory real soon. Don't worry. Mm-hmm. And then you come back in and maybe you feel a bit better, maybe you don't, maybe you feel worse. And then we, and I've hooked you into this idea of doing a repeat test because that's how I make money, right? So like, oh, now we need to test, don't guess, and we need to make sure the SIBO is gone and the Klebsiella is gone. So you do another SIBO test and another $400 GI map. And, whether it's based off of symptoms, like you don't feel better, or based on testing, like, oh, the SIBO is still there. The kind of experience I've seen is like people get caught in the cycle of, okay, I do the protocol, I do the thing, I buy the expensive supplements, I do all the appointments, I do the diet, but I don't get the desired results. And then, the practitioner and the person alike, it's like that should be a point for reevaluation. And you could decide, do we double down on the theory that we already laid forth, or do we open our eyes to other theories and start exploring other things? And humans in general suck at that. Like once we've decided on a path forward, we want to go on that path and not think about it again. And so that like pause, reflect, reevaluate, decide, okay, we move forward again. But like, that's where you see people where they've done 5, 6, 27 SIBO protocols or Candida protocols. And they're like, oh my God, I'm not getting better. And then the doctors, this is where functional medicine comes in. Unanimously, I've seen it a million times. The practitioner who I I want to say is probably well-intentioned and just a silly goose, but I don't know. The practitioner then tells you, wow, I can't believe this protocol isn't working for you. You must have a really tough case. Your SIBO is really stubborn. This is the worst case of candida I've ever seen. I can't believe how bad off you are. Well, you're like 1 foot in the grave, 1 foot on a banana peel at this point, man. You better just do the elemental diet for the rest of your life. I don't know what else to do. And it's like, again, thinking that person is a business owner, right? If I convinced you to blow thousands of dollars and months of your life and effort and time, and you missed out on weddings, you missed out on parties, you missed out on going to the bar with your buddies and having a Guinness, you put your life on hold and you sunk thousands of dollars and a lot of effort into doing this, I don't want to look like the bad guy. I don't want to look like the person who was a bad guy or ill-informed, and I led you down the wrong path. It is much easier for me to save face by doubling down on the theory and saying, wow, you have a really tough case. I have nothing else for you. Instead of saying, maybe I was fucking wrong. Maybe the theory was wrong and you don't have SIBO or you don't have candida, and maybe we need to work on your blood sugar or your sleep or your stress or something else.
Yeah.
Okay, rant.
Yeah, I say I was a whole lot cooler before the wellness industry. If I think about a time in my life when I was me, it was in college. I was partying, I was having a good time. And when I started getting symptoms, I looked at that like it was the problem, because that's what I heard from the wellness industry. Oh, you're not doing the perfect diet. I remember Dave Asprey was my gateway drug.
Oh my God.
Oh, you're not taking a handful of supplements every time you wake up, And so
what are you doing, bro?
Yeah.
Exactly. And I had to go back and go like, oh, no, that's exactly what I wanted to do. Now, I could have modified that lifestyle to fit my 40-year-old body. Absolutely. But trying to be perfect and force healing on ourselves and look at our decisions like they're a problem, instead of going, yeah, I was wrong and I'm going to change and I'm going to go back to my original factory setting without all the trauma responses. If you can't learn from your mistakes and self-observe, you're going to get stuck in those patterns.
Well, and to go back to what you gave us of like, you were in college and you were partying and you were eating chicken wings and, whatever, and like pizza and whatever else, it would make perfect sense that you had some GI symptoms, right? Because I guarantee you weren't eating enough fiber and you probably weren't looking at a vegetable ever. Mm-hmm. Maybe like a fleeting glance at a salad in the food mess hall lineup, right? But if you were just a college bro and you were busy drinking beer and flirting with girls and eating pizza and wings, like there's some, and this is where it's so hard, there is some practicality to like eating healthier or getting a certain nutrient. Like, yeah, you're going to be really tired if you don't have enough vitamin B12 in your diet. There's just like, that's like a no-brainer kind of duh. That doesn't mean that you obsess over all of your SNPs and you research if you have all the vitamin B12 transporter SNPs and maybe you have low stomach acid and that's why you don't absorb. It's like, maybe you just don't eat enough B12, but there's some element of health information and medical information being really just practical and like learning about your body and learning about how the body works and how nutrition works, like that could make a lot of sense. And I wish that more people had some of that base knowledge, but that also doesn't mean that you need to spiral and take 42 supplements a day and only eat organic and do AIP and like, you could take information and you can like run with it in a really OCD anxiety fueled way, or you could take information and go, oh, okay, I think I'm going to try to have a salad at least twice a week, and it's just like, oh, okay. Observe, get a little curious, and then, oh, okay, I'll make a change kind of an attitude. But I sort of to the point you mentioned, by the way, I recently did a Zoom webinar for CE. And I was texting Amy the whole day and I was like, oh my God, I hated it immensely, all of it, but I got CE credit for it. But at one point, I told Amy, so this guy, I had heard him speak at a conference years ago. I'm talking like 12 years ago. And I remember thinking that he was really good, really knowledgeable, like very, very smart, very bright. And he was doing a whole day thing about updates in functional medicine, all the latest research. And I got CE credit for it. I was like, yeah, let's do it. Because again, I remember him being bright and good. And immediately in the Zoom webinar, I was like, whoa, I hate this so much. This is all of the rhetoric and the tropes in functional medicine of like, he's only talking about supplements. He's not paying even lip service to like stress management or sleep or movement, anything else. It's all just supplement after supplement after supplement. And, oh yeah, gluten's evil. Oh yeah, soy is evil. Oh yeah, dairy's evil. Oh, sugar, that's the devil for sure. You better not touch that. And he's going through all the same tropes of like food fear, control, and supplements. And then at some point he said, now I take about 40 different nutraceutical products every single day. And sometimes people in my life, sometimes my friends and family ask me, so-and-so, why do you take all those supplements? You're so healthy. You shouldn't need supplements. And I tell them that is exactly why I'm healthy, because I take 40 different products a day. And sometimes I take more if I think I need more. And I kid you not, Mitch, I'm not making this up. I'm not this creative. The example he gave was, yeah, if I drive past a farm and I know that farms spray chemicals and fertilizers and glyphosate. If I drive past a farm or a field, I will take more detox support when I get home.
Yeah. He is me. I was him. I get that.
But I'm texting Amy and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have a conniption fit and my eyes are going to bug out of my head like in Looney Tunes. Like, I can't take it anymore. And it was really eye-opening though, because I think 12 years ago or whatever it might be, I think I would have thought that seminar was great. Cutting edge. Yeah. Absolute. Yeah. Hell yeah. Sign me up. Give me those supplements. Oh, I'm not taking enough shit. And now it was an indicator to me like how far I've come and how much I've evolved and my like way of thinking and my way of seeing the human body and the healing journey and like what is reasonable and what is attainable and like reasonable for normal people. And it was weird. But yeah, so the moral of the story, everybody, is if you're not taking 40 separate nutraceuticals every day of your life, then you're doing it wrong. And that is the only way you can be healthy. So bye.
Yeah.
And anyway, forgive me. I forget how we got on that tangent though. Can either of you pick up wherever we might have left off?
Functional medicine craziness, I feel like.
Freaking functional medicine. God damn it. All right. Well, we have talked for a good long while. And while I think that we would all be keen to keep yammering, I want to be mindful of our poor podcast audio editor and the people who probably have lives to, like their commute is long gone at this point. They've listened to a podcast and they've listened to us on 2 commutes at this point. Mitch, I meant to ask you this in the beginning of the episode and I failed to do so. Can you please tell people where they could find you if they want more? Like, website, your own podcast, like Instagram, whatever you've got. Where can people find you?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on today. It's been so much fun chatting with you guys. And yeah, I'm sure we could go on forever. If people are interested, if they listen to this and resonate with it, they can find my websites, mitchwebb.com.
And that's Webb with 2 B's, right?
2 B's. Rooted Conversations is my podcast. It's on all podcast platforms. It's hosted on YouTube as a video. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok, trying to figure that one out. Trying to think of anything else. And I think I have a free quiz that I'm going to give you guys where people are interested in this work. It's a good thing to get started, to bring some awareness in, understand a little bit about their nervous system, get some resources for how to regulate and begin this work. And again, thank you guys so much for coming on. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really as fun as I imagined it would be and informative as I imagined it would be having you on. And again, I know darn well we could talk for hours because we have.
We always do.
Be sure to, not going to be braggadocious here, but I'm going to be on Rooted Conversations.
Ooh.
We're going to be recording that episode next week.
We got to get Amy on too.
Correctly.
Oh,
Hey, she's pretty good at podcasting, but you have to just make sure that she doesn't like scratch at the microphone do something weird. That's all. Yeah.
That's true. I'm kind of a liability at times.
Yeah, she's in training. I figure, by the time we hit 230 episodes, she will be a bona fide podcaster. So I'm working on that with her. Don't worry. But
we like weird stuff on my podcast, so all that's encouraged.
Absolutely. Well, then we are your girls, man. We go on the rabbit trails and we have weird conversations. But hopefully they're informative and beneficial. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, you can find Mitch Webb with 2 B's, Webb. He's got a website. He's on Instagram. Go find him. He's a wealth of information. And be sure to check out the Rooted Conversations podcast, especially the episode I'm going to be in. And, go check that out and learn some more and maybe take some steps to regulate and understand your nervous system. Thank you again, Mitch. Until next time, toodaloo.